Hi, I'm Carmen Geddes, and welcome back to our Quilted Jacket Series. In this video, we're going to be talking about getting ready to create the fabric for our jacket pieces. Now, I just want to go back just a little bit. The jacket that I'm working on today is a very basic jacket, which is what I suggest if you are new to constructing a garment and want to kind of keep this very simple. So this jacket pattern is one that is available now through Grain Line Studios, at least as of today. But I wouldn't worry so much about the actual jacket, because what you want to look for is a front, back, and sleeve. So you can look at jacket patterns. Don't worry so much about length, because like in my jacket I'm working on today, I'm actually going to make it quite a bit longer than the actual jacket. So the other thing I was going to say is when you have a jacket, or I'm sorry, when you buy a pattern, most patterns come with this really light tissue paper. There's going to be multiple sizes. So what I suggest, what I like to do with my patterns, and especially if it's something that I think I might use more than one time, I'm going to trace the pattern. And so what I did is I traced, because my shoulders are a little bit more narrow, and then as I go down, my body gets a little bit bigger. And so I kind of like to make some of those adjustments when I'm tracing a pattern. So this pattern piece that I have right here is for my jacket front. Now, if you are tracing the jacket, if you know adjustments that you want to make, then you can do that, right when you're tracing it. But this I traced just as the jacket, because the first one that I made from this pattern is this jacket, and I made it just exactly like the pattern said. And so I made it just how the pattern came out. But I trace it on a little bit heavier. This is actually kind of more of a stabilizer, or a heavier pellon that's not fusible. It makes for tracing patterns. Yeah, butcher paper, if you can see through it, would be a nice one. Anyway, I like tracing the patterns. So if you are new to EasyPiecing Grid, just by way of very quick explanation, EasyPiecing Grid is a lightweight iron-on foundation that we print a grid on. Below this video, there's going to be a link to 10sisters.com. We have lots of tutorials, lots of explanation videos of how we're piecing with this EasyPiecing Grid. We actually print it in multiple sizes. And so the jacket that I just held up before was on our 2-inch finished. So that was starting with 2.5-inch squares. The one that I am working on today is on our 1.5-inch finished. And so I will have a little video in this jacket series. There'll be some little tip videos showing you some little construction tips for EasyPiecing Grid throughout this series. And then, like I said, on 10sisters.com, we have lots of tutorials for how to piece with EasyPiecing Grid. And so, just by way of a little quick explanation, we are going to cut out squares. You have the fusible side of your grid facing up. You iron squares down, whatever pattern you like, or just totally scrappy. And then when you are ready to sew, you just fold that on the fold line and sew a 1/4-inch seam, and fold it on the fold line, sew your 1/4-inch seam. And we basically are sewing through this panel in both directions, and then we get a beautiful finished part of a quilt, or in this case, we are creating the fabric for our pattern pieces. So what's a little bit different about this approach is, typically when I've seen people making quilted jackets, they are taking a whole quilt that's already finished, which you can do, or a quilt top that you have finished that you're just going to cut up. But I wanted to be a little bit more intentional about my placement or my pattern on a specific jacket. I'll show you this one real quick. This jacket, let's see, I'm going to lay it down, I think, so we can kind of see it. So this has got a triple Irish chain as the pattern for this jacket. Well, I wanted that triple Irish chain to be centered on my quilt, or centered on the back of my quilted jacket. This one I added a hood to and a zipper, but the placement was kind of important. This is also the 1.5 inch finished, by the way. So we'll be referring to this jacket more as we go along with our videos. But so I want to focus on, hey, let's start with our stash or with some of our favorite fabrics, and let's create a piece of fabric essentially that is going to fit our pattern piece. So if I am tracing this pattern and I know, and you can actually do this from, your original big pattern piece. I traced just this one piece, but basically you're going to get your measuring tape and you're going to say, okay, from the very top, to the bottom, this pattern was 28 inches. Well, I measured it to myself. I kind of want to make this a longer coat that I can, I just want a longer coat. And so I'm making that about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 inches longer in the front and the back. And so then I'm saying to myself, well, then I need a piece of fabric that's 35 by, and then we're going to take the widest part. Let me move this out here. Then we're going to measure out from the center front out to, that's going to be about 14 inches. I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. And so because this is the jacket front, well, I need 2, right? I need 2 of them. And so then when I did my pieces, I want to kind of show you what I was thinking so then I'm going to just lay out, and I call this like stacked stars. This is one of my favorite quilt blocks of all time, is this little sawtooth star. It's just so fun. You can do it in so many different variations. This is so fun to do with Scrappy. So when I was thinking about laying out the fabrics, of course, it's not sewn. So I have to say, if I'm working on, let me pull out my grid here. If I'm working on my grid, now this one happens to be the 1 inch finished. Let me just do it here so we can kind of see. This is the 1 inch finished. So that would be, so if I was making this in 1 inch finished, well then if I need it to be 35 inches long, well then I need 35 squares down and I need 14 squares across. If it needs to be 35 by 14 for each pattern piece. So that if I'm working on the 1.5 inch finished, well then I'm just going to do the math and figure out, okay, basically how many squares down. Our seam allowances are going to vary. I tend to be on a little bit more of a scant 1/4 inch. So that's why I always give myself about 1 inch or so wiggle room around the outsides, just so I'm not having to be quite so exact. But so basically, if you're going to piece your fabric on EasyPiecing Grid, the first thing you're going to decide is, well, what size square do I want to work with? Do I want to work with 2.5 inch squares or half square triangles? Because all the pre-cuts are going to cut into 2.5, so that's a great size. I like the 1.5 inch finish because they're a little bit smaller. The smaller you go, the more detail you're going to get. So with a 1 inch finished, you're going to get lots and lots of detail. I'll show you a sample here in just a minute. So what I basically wanted to show you as I was deciding where I wanted to put my squares, or my stars rather, and we don't have a lot of room here, but we'll see what actually is going to show up on the camera. So basically I put these together and I thought, I don't want them to be exactly symmetrical with this. This is kind of, these stacked stars. I wanted them to be a little bit more organic looking. And so I did not necessarily want to mirror these. But if you did, then I would lay out my fabrics on one panel and then just have my next section and lay them out exactly the same if you would like that to be mirrored. And so, and we've got the little tips videos that are gonna be throughout this that are gonna give you little tips on how to do some of these things. But basically, the bottom line is, because you get to see this before you sew, then you really get to decide what this is going to look like. I went very scrappy with low volume fabrics in the background, which I also love. I just think it gives us so much fun personality, and just had so much fun making this. But the other thing I wanted to show you is on my pattern piece that I chose. If I am laying this here to cut this out, I purposely did not put a star like right up at the neck. So can you see where I did quite a bit of just the more background fabrics up here, because that is going to be where that neck piece is cut out. And then the only one I'm really kind of cutting off, which is kind of hard to do when you actually think about it, but you'll see that, oh darn, I'm gonna be kind of cutting that. So I could have even planned that a little bit better, but I kind of want this to look like I've just cut up a quilt, but I didn't, and there's just a lot less waste also doing it this way. And so when I am creating these pieces like this, normally you would put fabrics right sides together, 2 layers, and cut out your center, or cut out your front piece double, right? Well, I'm not going to do that, because I am going to, I guess I could do it, but I probably won't. I'll probably cut these out one at a time. And this one is actually going to go this way here. Now, the other thing that you want to pay attention to is making sure that I'm not like lowering this. I want to make sure that I'm giving myself the full length on both. And I guess in that case, it might be smarter to just, since I know that these are, I could actually cut these out 2 at a time. It's just it's my superstitious side that makes me not want to. But I actually could. I actually could do that. So either 1 at a time or 2 at a time. But can you see how we have created the fabric for this piece? Now on my back piece, the back pattern, I don't have my pattern for the back right here in front of me, but I just want to show you the piece I created for that back. It's doubled, right? And then up here, where I have quite a bit of just nothing, no color. This is kind of more where that neck is going to go, and this is going to be the bottom of the jacket. And so this I'm definitely will fold. I want to make sure I'm lining up, my fabric squares here, that I've got this lined up so that's all straight. After this is pieced, let's just pretend this is a back pattern. And then I'll lay that down, and then on this one, of course, I'm keeping that whole length for this pattern piece. So and you're going to do that on your front and your back and your sleeve. And so you are going to piece the fabric on the EasyPiecing Grid, have a lot of fun with your layout. I'll show you some other ideas in another video of different layouts that you can do, but really use your imagination. But I'll tell you, if you're intimidated at all with this whole thing, the best thing to think about is scrappy. And if you just go with scrappy squares, then you can't mess this up. It's just going to be really cute no matter how you do it. I just want to show you a couple other pattern pieces. This is another jacket that I'm working on. Actually, it is the same pattern. We'll talk a little bit more about this in another little tip video, but what I wanted to show you on this pattern piece, if we can see it nicely here, is that I've drawn a line. I'm following the grain line of my pattern, and I drew a line, and what I wanted to create was an inset piece. So basically I'm turning this one front pattern piece into two pieces, right? And I want to show you what it looks like after it's sewn together. So this is the front. This is the same basic jacket pattern, but I did one piece for the inset because I wanted to do, this is the 1-inch finished. Looks like I have them both sewn. I thought I had, oh, the back I'll show you in a second. And so I used the 1-inch finished on point. We have an on point border panel, and I used the 1-inch finished. And so talk about tons of detail. This was such a fun way to use. This is basically mostly all one fabric line, but just so fun and scrappy. So where I'm created two separate pattern pieces. I did put a little piping in here, and we'll show that on a video too. So many things. There's going to be so many little tips videos that I don't know. It's going to be great. I'm going to show you the back piece. So the back, I did exactly the same, where I created this is the same pattern, but I drew a line on the pattern, and I am doing it in two separate pieces. So this is the inset. So this is kind of the center back, and then these two pieces are. Let me pull this out so we can show you the one. So this is actually, nope, I did that wrong. Yep, I did it wrong. This one. This is actually the outside of my jacket. So the other thing I wanted to just show you about this next step, that we'll do a longer video on it, is that we put the back and the batting and the outside, and then we've quilted them. So we'll kind of go through this next step on another video. But I just wanted to show you that there are a lot of easy ways to alter these patterns a little bit. I thought this would be a little bit more fun to just do an inset that's all pieced and scrappy, and then just do a fun fabric on the outsides. And I want to show you my sleeve patterns. This is going to be exactly the same. Now the sleeve, when you're creating your sleeve pattern, or when you're creating the fabric for your sleeve, remember that you are going to be cutting out two of them. Just making a big mess here. So you're going to be cutting out two of those. And so this is the outside, keeping the outside of this jacket pretty neutral. And then I had to piece some fabrics for the lining, but we're doing this pattern piece by pattern piece. So you're making the most of your fabrics, and we're going to create the fabric and then cut out our pattern pieces. So we're going to have lots more videos to come, and lots more steps. But the first thing you want to decide, if you're going to piece your fabric, choose what size square that you want to work on. And then when you do have your pattern piece, you're going to get out your measuring tape, and then you are going to figure out how big of a piece of fabric you need. Now, the last thing I will say about that is, if you are doing like a bunch of pieces all out of the same, I wanted to just show you that when you have a pattern in the instructions, it always will show you some different layouts. It'll show you kind of how to lay out your pattern pieces on your fabric. Sometimes these can be really handy if you are wanting to make a bigger piece of fabric, so like one big piece of fabric that you can actually lay all these pieces out on. And backing up just a little bit to that, where you could have your long arm quilter, quilt a big piece, basically make a quilt for you. But you could do the quilt top or the layout specific to your pattern pieces, if that makes sense. Maybe I'll have kind of draw that out on a piece of graph paper to kind of show it on another video. But basically you could create your fabrics specifically to your patterns. And one little example of that is my my friend Vanessa and I made jackets together, and her sleeve had a black and white checkerboard at the bottom. And so when she created the fabric for her pattern piece, it was all, excuse me, it was all of her piecing up here, but down at the bottom of her fabric that she was creating, she did a cute checkerboard. And then on her pattern on the front and back patterns, when she was creating the fabric for the front and back, she did a checkerboard along the bottom. Anyway, super cute. I'll have to see if I can get a picture of that, and we'll share that picture on one of the videos that's coming up. So I hope this kind of helps you in thinking about how you want to start creating the fabric for this jacket. So the sky is the limit. Squares are going to be simpler than bringing in half square triangles, but half square triangles are so much fun also, because then, you know, your design possibilities are so endless. And so first thing to decide is what size square that you want to start piecing with. Now I'll tell you that you can find EasyPiecing Grid on 10sisters.com. The link is just below this video. On our website, which is 10sisters.com, also a link below this video, you on 10sisters.com, you will find a locator map that has, if you put in your zip code, it will tell you the quilt shops in your area that carry EasyPiecing Grid. And so we love to support our local quilt shops. And so go check out the locator map on 10sisters.com. Now, if you like our videos, please click that like button, and we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. You can hit that notification bell. It'll let you know whenever we put new videos up. But thanks so much for watching, and I hope we're getting inspired to get started on these quilting jackets. See you next time.